Yeah, and Stephanie, I hope you feel the love coming your way. I've been thinking about you
Thank
guys so much.
you.
And Louisa, so happy to see you, doll. Thank you for leading us. It's been just like such a joy to get these information. And then the cohort is like amazing. Everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Speaking of, here's Megan coming in.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Michelle, the
Yeah.
And
people.
Michelle. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh,
Yeah.
and
Yay.
before I forget,
Hi.
I'm going to put in the chat. Elaine, you were asking me about the cost and some information about that program I'm taking. I'm going to write it in the chat. So you have all the, I just had the orientation session today. So I'll write that in the
Oh,
chat.
how'd you
And
like
you're
it?
liking it?
Yeah, I like it so far. It's overwhelming. You know, when you first start something, it's like, oh my God, it's a fire hose. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to just take some time to kind of look through it. But they're using Katra as the software. I don't know if anyone's
Okay.
heard of it. So KAT or Kartra,
Okay.
Kartra. So it's interesting to see some of the different tools people are using as well.
Okay. Interesting.
Too early to have any thoughts about it yet.
Good
Okay.
luck. Enjoy it.
Nice.
Thank
Nice.
you.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome, Michelle and Megan. Good to see you.
Oh,
Hi. You look nice in red, Michelle. It's a nice
Yeah,
Thank
color on
you. I
you.
wear it a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good
good.
color.
And it was actually 0 degrees this morning.
Oh
Woo!
no, you can't
In
be in Florida at zero
Florida.
I was
degrees.
so
That's
happy.
crazy. Oh.
Celsius. I'm in Celsius, but
Oh,
yeah.
oh, right, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, it's -6 here in Toronto, so
Yeah, no, I know. I track
balmy.
like three cities always. Yeah. So
All right. Okay, so today we're talking about the progress principle. Progress, it depends on where you're from. But I'm going to talk about the progress principle. This is something that I have been wanting to talk about and explore for a really long time. And this is the work of Teresa Amabile. And being Italian, I always want to say Amabile, but apparently it's Amabile and Stephen Kramer. And they wrote a book. It was a long time ago, but the book that they wrote called The Progress Principles was really based on a very large research project that included, many people over several companies, and um, and they collected 12,000 diaries of people, and her findings were quite interesting. And the reason why I wanted to explore the progress principle is because I really felt like it was very related to self-efficacy, which is near and dear to my heart. Which, if you've read my book, you will know that I write about Albert Bandura's model of self-efficacy. Because when I read the research on self-efficacy, I was like, like my head was exploding. I was like, everybody has to know about this, which is why I wrote the book about it, because I always had a lot of self-doubt. And so, what we've learned over the years too is that self efficacy can be the real golden nugget for performance. So, Luthens has written papers on that, which I'll make references to that as well. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but it's a Stijek, I believe, and Luthens wrote a paper connecting that. But there are other things that correlate with performance as well. So that's why I wanted to start with this month's mastermind on the progress principle and move into adaptability because, and I want to introduce this idea of pragmatic prospection, which is a Baumeister and Marty Seligman thing. Marty is writing a book on agency, which should be coming out. I don't know when it's coming out. It just asked Mandy, but I forget what she said. Um, and so that is sort of all related into this as well. So when we get to that, and I did post the academic paper on pragmatic prospection. If you are interested in learning more about, like, what is that? What is she talking about? You can certainly read the academic article. If you're not into academic articles, you can always feed it into ChatGPT and ask for a summary, as etc. And that should give you a clear understanding of what they're talking about. And then for the next master class, I thought we could then jump into psychological capital, which is the work of Luthens and Avolio et al. and USEF and that kind of has a construct with four different things in it. It's the hero model, which is hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism. And then how is that implemented within organizations, or how can we build that? I'm trying to keep everything with a different perspective because we don't all work in organizations. So I'm trying to also say, how would this work for Michelle, for example, who's working more with parents or youth or people, or organizations around it, or corporations too, with regards to digital strategy? Elaine, Zesty Aging and, and the communities that you are creating, and even your PhD work, how would this be applied and related to what you did? And Stephanie, with feedback models, et cetera, although you're going to be within organizations. And then Megan, within school systems or other kinds of communities, right? Or people with disabilities, et cetera, et cetera. So I try to keep an open mind with all of that and keep it open. And I would love for kind of us to have a discussion and have a broader discussion around, how it would apply within all these different contexts. And then the final one that I thought, when I really thought of, okay, we'll do the progress principle, and then we'll move on to adaptability and pragmatic perspection, and then we'll move on to psychological capital. I thought, well, we really then need to round out all of that with some solution-focused coaching tools. Now, has anybody taken solution-focused coaching?
No.
Okay, because when I first learned about solution focus, it was from a colleague of mine when I was doing the master's program, and she told me the best place to do it is at University of Toronto. And I studied with Hey Sun Moon, and that's where I met Hey Sun. That's how I met her. She was my professor. And it blew me away. And what really blew me away is that the solution focus so easily build self-efficacy. It is incredible. And so I actually designed a course that I delivered at OISE called The Positive Psychology Behind the Solution Focus. And I talked about the connections with self-efficacy. But it's such a practical application of positive psychology, and it can be very powerful to bring all of this together. So that's kind of where I was going. I posted all of that in the Wellbeing Water Cooler. You also got an email with the four different topics as well. But before I get started, any thoughts on the first step that we're going to take on the progress principle? Has anybody read the progress principle? Okay, so this is going to be brand new for everybody. Okay, so this will be a really good summary, and we can have a really good discussion. Does anybody have any comments or anything that they want to say before we get started?
I do. I
Okay.
want to say that I don't have my master's in this, but I do have 3 degrees. And I read constantly, and I'm a total like podcast. Like I love to learn, it's one of my strengths. And it's so refreshing to hear things that I've never heard before. Yeah.
Okay.
And I just
Good.
think I'm so impressed, Louisa, that I mean, you took your master's in positive psychology several years ago, many years ago. And just the fact that you stay so current and you're so like into the evidence base, like there's clinicians out there, like as a clinician, former clinician that's worked in a hospital, occupational therapist, you are more on top of the current evidence and blow my mind with things that I haven't heard of. And it's just, I love being surprised and I love learning from you. So I just want to give you like huge props. That
Thank
is
you.
not
That's so nice
easy.
of you.
Yes, I mean
That's
it.
so nice of you. And to come from you, because I know you're very discerning, to come from you, that's a real compliment. So thank you so much. And the reason why these four topics too, and I learn as I go too sometimes, like, oh, that's something new I didn't, as putting all this stuff together, sometimes I learn new things too. But what it's the connection of all of this. It's the assimilation of it all. This is after these 4 sessions over the next 4 months, it's what is the collective learning and how is it all connected? And that's really what I'm super, super excited about. So you'll see how it unfolds, that it will all, eventually come together.
I have one question on
Yes.
these four things. Is any of it controversial or really now popular? Like, what's the kind of state of these topics in the world right now in terms of popular opinion in the professional world, let's say, not in just the
Okay.
social media world, but like, is there? I know that's a weird question, but I'm just curious.
No, no, I think that's a great question. So if you were to ask most managers or leaders, what do you think really motivates people? What do you think they would say if you ask most
Well, in
leaders?
Canada, they'd probably say purpose and money.
Right. Purpose, like make it meaningful, money, recognition, like,
Yeah.
oh, if I'm thanking people and recognizing
Mastery,
people,
mastery.
making them feel happy, right? Mastery, right? And in fact, what Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer found is that managers didn't even list mastery on the list. They didn't even list making progress on the list. And yet, in her research, they found that it was the number one thing that affected a thing called inner work life. Let's get into the presentation. So that's what I think is most controversial, Michelle, is that it kind of goes against what popular culture is and exposes something in the research that a lot of people are not aware of. And so that could be, kind of we'll call it a unique point of view as opposed to controversial. There's no, people, it's well supported in the research, and Bandura's work in self-efficacy is certainly very, very well supported in the research, and he's one of the most prominent psychologists of all time, Bandura. And Marty said that he always resisted looking at Bandura's work, and he realized now it was because out of jealousy because of how brilliant his work was. So I thought that was a very interesting thing. I hope I got that right, Elaine. I think he mentioned something about, and but now he's writing a whole book on agency, right? And so, that's really interesting that he's changed his mind on that. So yeah, and I think it's relevant at this time too, because I can't always, like when you think about prospection and you think about the future, like I think about a company I'm working with that's high tech, you can't always prospect into the future to know what the products are going to be. Like some people just won't know what AI is even going to look like next year or next month. And so this idea of how can we help people make progress and feel good about it rather than saying you have to achieve this goal or you're a failure kind of thing. And so how do we help people make progress and feel good about it and then build that momentum rather than just having a certain goal in mind? Because sometimes it's hard. We should have some goal, which will come up in the research, but but it's about progress and not perfection. Does that make sense? Did I answer your
Mhm.
question?
Yeah,
Yeah? Okay. Okay, good.
totally.
All right. All right, let's get started then. And let me share my screen. Okay. All right, let's go. Okay. So, small wins that fuel performance. Her whole book is about small wins, and her research is about small wins. But I want you to think of a good day at work, maybe a good day in the past couple of weeks, a recent day that felt energizing, not extraordinary, not award-winning, just good. What happened? I'm asking you.
For me, it definitely involves other people and people having like a breakthrough, like just And I know it's not extraordinary, but it's just somebody says like, "Oh, I never thought of it like that," or just thanks for listening. You know, like someone just feels seen or listened, or you know, like that's a good day.
Love that. So you did something and someone went, "Oh, wow." And they saw it, they had a breakthrough, they had a different perspective. I love
Yeah.
that. I love
Hmm.
it. Anyone else? Like the other day, I have been working on this digital toolkit for like a year with this client, and I've gone back and forth and back and forth, and they've been very slow. I'll give it to them, and it takes a month for them to respond. Like it's just been going on. And the other day, I finished it, and I felt so good that it was done. Like it was just such a great day. Like gave it to them at 11 o'clock at night on Sunday. Like it was like, oh my God, I just felt so good that it was done, you know? Um,
I mean, I can share an example more from my teacher had, but I've had a couple students struggling with something, and some of them like they got it and it sort of got sorted, and so it sort of just feels good to have been able to give them the space and patience, right? Versus an absolute like too bad you fail or whatever. And so it's a bit tiring, not necessarily energizing, but like there is that feel good at the end that okay, I gave that person the space they needed and then they were able to be successful. So that always makes me feel good after the stretches of just being tired of all the student stress. So um but yeah, last
nice.
week in particular, one sorted this some issue out they'd really been struggling with. And so it felt good to just be able to see them get where they needed to be.
Yeah. So it's like you helped them make progress,
Yeah.
right? Like you were the catalyst that helped um, make progress. Okay. All right. Oh, Michelle, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
going to say definitely collaboration when collaboration is happening and there's a generative dialogue, meaning
Mhm.
something comes out of the conversation that you didn't go into knowing was going to emerge.
Right. Yes. Okay. Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, Elaine, what about you?
Yeah, Michelle said it so perfectly. I'm going to ditto that. I was in a meeting with a group, and you know how like groups have different like phases of just working things through, and I felt misunderstood and I spoke up, and then I got really good feedback, and then somebody said, "Well, did you see this other feedback that you got?" And I was like shocked. So it was just really, it was a beautiful, like one of the nicest things I've ever had somebody write about me. So it was just like really surprising. I felt really lifted up by the group, and I felt like validated around the contributions that I was aiming to make.
Nice. Oh, I love that. I love you. Elaine mentioned yesterday that she was in a session and somebody pulled out her book and showed it to everyone. She was totally not expecting, like it wasn't a session on her book or anything. This person happened to like she was in her feed and this person had her book and I just think that's incredible, Elaine.
Yeah,
That's really good.
it was wild, Louisa. What it was is a girl that I know from the meaning and purpose group was training in Lisbon, and she, the woman who was giving this presentation, it was around aging. All of a sudden, she showed my picture, my book cover, and then like one of my slides, but it gave me attribution, and it was just like she
That's
sent me the
nice.
pictures. I'm like, what is this from? And then she told me it was from a mutual colleague, and that I was like being highlighted. So it was really humbled and like pretty surprised and awesome on that. Yeah, it was so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Louisa. That
Nice.
was a high
Nice.
point moment.
Nice. So, we talked about all different things. I think, in Elaine's case too, like even with the story with the book, about recognition, that feeling that people are recognizing your work, or Megan is feeling good about helping a student make progress on something. Michelle is talking about how, in collaboration, sometimes there's these beautiful nuggets, that come out of collaboration and how wonderful it is to collaborate. And Stephanie talked about how, she helped someone as well accomplish a breakthrough. And I had an accomplishment. A lot of these are around our accomplishments. Um, and I mentioned this earlier that according to Teresa, Amabile. I'm just gonna say Teresa from here on in, okay? And not mention Stephen Kramer or anything. But according to Teresa, 95% of managers misunderstand what truly motivates people. It's not bonuses or pressure or competition or big goals. It's daily progress in meaningful work. And that's really central to all of her research. It's daily progress in meaningful work. So when people make progress in meaningful work, three things happen inside of them. Their perception shifts to this is possible, because when we're making progress, we're building that self-efficacy. Their emotion lifts to this feels good, and their motivation strengthens. I want to keep going. And that internal experience, that combination of perception, emotion, and motivation is what Amabile calls inner work life. So this is central to her theories, to her research, this idea of inner work life. And that's what drives creativity and productivity. So this positive inner work life versus negative inner work life. Okay, so she distinguishes between those two, but specifically, it's inner work life that drives creativity and productivity. So, what is inner work life? And again, it's the daily combination and of these, emotions, perceptions, and motivation. And it's the interplay of the three that emotions can have an effect on motivation, and motivation can have effect on perceptions, and perceptions have an effect on motivation or emotions, et cetera, et cetera. So what she is saying is that it's an interplay and they're all interconnected, emotions. So positive inner work life is emotions of joy, whereas negative would be emotions of frustration or anger. Pride would be a positive one, right? Perceptions of how we interpret events and motivation. And she specifically talks about intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. Is everybody familiar with self-determination theory, the work of Ryan and Dassey, for example, on intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation? So Stephanie, you've heard of that. Michelle, you've read research on that too. Okay. And Megan, you
I just
probably,
heard about I haven't read the research, but I've heard about the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation.
And I'm
What
the
is
same. I've heard it. I wouldn't say I've really read about it, but I've heard the basic ideas of it, of that. Even years ago, I read some book, I don't even remember now, about it that like helped shift me, actually. I would say it was a big impact in my 20s of where am I getting it was more about validation, but I imagine
okay.
it's got a lot of similar things to it.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can find a paper or something on it that will explain. And a lot of people think that you've got extrinsic motivation over here and intrinsic motivation over here, and it's either one or the other, and it's really not. It's really a whole broad range of, it's kind of as a sliding scale that gets you to intrinsic. So there's many different things, and that in fact, you could be extrinsically motivated to the point where it's almost integrated and becomes intrinsic motivation for you, even though there are external factors. Anyway, we won't get into it now, but I'll see if there's something that I can put out there.
Elaine did a
So,
really nice post on her LinkedIn about because DC just died recently. And
oh, Desi just died? No, when did Desi
yeah,
die?
February 14th.
No way. Oh my
Yeah,
God, I didn't hear that Ed died. Oh, wow, that's too bad. He was fascinating. He was a fascinating guy.
yeah.
Um, anyway, that's too bad. That's too bad. Yeah,
Stephanie,
his
thanks for
work
the
is,
shout out because I
yeah.
do describe it briefly in my LinkedIn post, and I did share that also within our WhatsApp group.
Okay, nice, nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to look at those yet, but I will for
Thanks,
sure.
Steph.
Okay. So, this whole idea is positive inner work life leads to higher performance. And you like these pictures, Elaine? Um, The inner work life effect, when inner work life is positive, people show, so what she found is that people show greater creativity, improved productivity, improved commitment, and improved collegiality. So people are getting along better. And it's not soft psychology. This is what she calls performance science. So this is all, she can back this with science. And she does have 12,000 diaries that she collected. So this is not insignificant, an insignificant amount of data. Megan, did you go off mute for a reason or was there something? No. Okay. So the progress principle is essentially this. Oh, um, of all daily work events, the most powerful positive trigger of inner work life is progress in meaningful work. And we'll discuss all of that. And the most powerful negative trigger is setbacks. So setbacks do play into this as well. And the data shows that on the best mood days, 76% involved progress. And on the worst mood days, 67% involved setbacks. So small wins matter and small losses matter even more. And I'm going to show you a paper, which, as part of our mandatory reading in MAP, we had to read an article by Baumeister et al. About why bad is stronger than good. And it became, we have this negativity bias, and it became a real, we talk about it all the time. We talk about it all the time in MAP, and I've got the citation for it in a future slide. So she talks about the progress loop. So it starts with progress. You have progress. That leads to positive emotions, which then leads to higher intrinsic motivation, which then leads to better performance, which then feeds into more progress. So what they found is that when they had this progress leap, so on the days where they had diaries where they made progress, actually the next day it fed into greater progress even on the next day and the next day. So it's kind of like a virtuous cycle that if you're doing this every day, it kind of fuels you even for the next day, this progress loop. And the same can happen for the opposite. You have a setback, which leads to negative emotions, which leads to negative inner work life, more, reduced performance, and more setbacks. And again, which could lead into the next day. This is why I always feel like rumination, which women do more than men, can be a real problem because if you have a setback on one day and you're thinking about it over and over and over again, even into the next day, it can then affect your performance for the next day. So, how important it is to stop ruminating and to teach ourselves how to stop ruminating. Okay, so any questions so far, comments? What are your thoughts so far? I mean, this makes a lot of sense.
It just
Yeah,
reminds me of years ago, sales training when I was just doing that kind of work to get the money in the door. Was that idea that like it takes 10 good experiences to overcome one negative one, like in terms of customer service. So I remember that time, like and it reminded me of way my because my schooling's in biochem and research, and that is like that we've got that like amygdala takes over, right? That fear response is wired to take over because we need to run and survive, right? Over happiness that it does override. So it kind of echoes a lot of that,
yeah,
which I think we know, but it's nice to see it framed this way. I think it feels a little more natural for what I think at least I'm and the rest of us are kind of doing in our careers now. So
nice, nice. Yeah. And I think too, like if this is true, if setbacks really have kind of more of an effect, and I've got another slide to show that, then maybe this becomes part of the training that helps people. Like if you can overcome, if you can quickly bounce back from a setback, which is really resilience, right? If you think about Luthen's psychological capital model, it is, resilience is one of the components. So if we can help people to bounce back quickly from a setback, we can circumvent a lot of the negative effects of a setback and keep people moving along and moving forward, whether they've had a setback or not, right? Um, yeah. Okay, thanks, Megan.
Louisa, quick
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
This is just, I think I'm reading it wrong, or maybe I have something off. A couple slides ago, we're talking about, um, loss aversion. Yeah, this one. And so, best mood days, 76% is progress, that involve progress. On the worst days, 67% involve setbacks. But then what follows below doesn't make sense. Small wins matter, small losses matter more. But if you look at the
So,
76 and the 67, it seems like it's the opposite. I know that that's the data
yeah.
and that's true, is that you don't want to, you hate losing more than you love to win, or and I know that's true and that's what the data shows. But what am I missing about these numbers? Like
So,
it seems
so
like
if you
they're
think about it,
backwards.
yes, yes, and I'm really glad you're asking this question. So when you took a look, because they are also rated in terms of their mood. So this was the worst mood day, but only 67% involved setbacks, which means setbacks had a much greater impact on mood than having a positive, right? Having progress. So it took a lot more, let's say it took a lot
Oh,
more progress to affect good mood,
gotcha.
took fewer
Yes.
setbacks to affect worse mood.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
My brain wasn't computing that, so thank you for explaining it.
Yeah. No, I'm really glad you asked that question. Yeah. Yeah. I too, when I looked at it, I'm like, what? What is she talking about? And then yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So why progress is so powerful, and this is why I get so excited about this and really like jump up and down. Again, if you read my book, I talk a lot about this. But why progress is so powerful is one of our most basic human drives is self-efficacy. And if you think about self-determination theory, mastery is one of the things, and self-efficacy is highly related to is sorry, mastery is highly related to intrinsic motivation. It's a motivator, and self-efficacy is highly related to mastery. But self-efficacy is a belief that I can achieve meaningful goals. That's what self-efficacy is. Self-efficacy is not whether you can achieve meaningful goals or not. Self-efficacy is, do you believe that you can achieve meaningful goals? So that's a big difference. And I always tell the story of one of my students that I had when in early days when I just started facilitating. I was teaching women who had been out of the workforce for many years, and we were teaching them technology skills to get them back into the workforce. And I had a star student, I'll call her Susan. And Susan was amazing. She was teaching all the other women how to do the computers, and like and she was super nice. So people really enjoyed working with her. Like she just had all the skills. So I thought, oh, when we go to do her resume and apply to jobs, she's the first person who's going to get a job because she's amazing. And so then we went to, we put together a resume and we said, okay, apply for jobs. And then I saw her like a week or two later and I said, okay, so how's the job hunting going? How many resumes have you sent out? And she said, I haven't sent any resumes out. And I said, why? Why, Susan? What's going on? And she said, what's the point? I'm just going to get hired and they're going to realize I'm an idiot anyway. And I was just shocked because here was my star student who didn't believe that she was so talented and such a star. Like I saw it, we all saw it. She couldn't see it. And it was that belief that was stopping her from getting into action. And so I always thought, these beliefs are so powerful. So every time we make progress, Confidence grows, engagement deepens, and persistence increases because it actually changes that belief. When we make progress, it sends a message to our brain, you did it. So you become more confident. And when you make progress, you're more engaged in the work you're doing because you're saying, look at me. I really love this stuff. Like Stephanie, when you were talking about how that person had a breakthrough, you're so engaged because you're like, oh my God, look at what I'm doing. I'm really making a difference in this person's life. It feels good, that engagement, right? And you persist because you go, yeah, look, it's working. I'm going to keep doing more of it, right? Nothing sort of dampens things more than when it goes wrong, then you don't feel like trying anymore sometimes. So progress builds that kind of performance capacity. And then I've put here a source here. I don't know how to pronounce his name, Stajkovic or Stajkovic or something. Anyway, the citation is here if you wanted to read the meta-analysis. Or you know what I'll do? I will put the meta-analysis in here because it's really an interesting paper. And I actually interviewed Luthans for my book as well about this because I wanted to know more about it. And Luthans would say that if you take a look at psychological capital, self-efficacy is actually the golden ticket for organizations more than the other components in psychological capital, which we'll talk about in a few months. But self-efficacy affects performance not because confident people feel good. It affects performance because it changes what people attempt. So they set more challenging goals. It changes how hard they try, how much effort people expend, how long they persist, how they interpret setbacks, not as failures, but just challenges to overcome, how they use feedback, how they regulate emotion, and how they allocate cognitive resources. With feedback, for example, people who have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, people with a fixed mindset don't want to hear feedback. They find that offensive. They don't like it. It doesn't make them feel good. Whereas people that have a growth mindset really love to hear the feedback. So it makes a difference. And if you have a high level of self efficacy, all of these things can change. Allocating cognitive resources means I'm not worrying about self doubt. When I feel a high level of self efficacy and I believe in myself, I'm not sitting there ruminating, going, oh my God, am I going to do a good job? Is it going to fail? Is this going to happen? Is that going to? That's taking up a lot of cognitive load that is released when you're feeling really confident. So this is, I always felt like this was kind of a full motivational, cognitive, emotional architecture, like just right here, right? Teaching self-efficacy. So the work also, what Amabile talks about is the work must be meaningful. So progress only fuels performance if the work feels meaningful. So meaningful doesn't mean, you have to be saving the world or, Karen Rockine always talks about like Oprah size meaning or purpose. We don't always have to have that kind of saving the world kind of meaning and purpose. It's just I'm doing, what I'm doing matters to someone or something I care about, right? And when meaning disappears, progress loses power. And that's what Emma Beale also discovers in her work, that it must be meaningful. Now, there are three key influences that influence this, that can influence a positive inner work life. Number one, progress. We've already talked about this idea of forward movement and meaningful work. But there are two other things that can also have an impact on positive inner work life. And those are catalysts, so events that support the work, and I'll get into some examples in a minute, and nourishers, events that supports the person. Okay, so any questions at this point? Comments?
What do you mean by events that support the person? Like what's
Um,
an example?
I'll give you an example on the next slide. Is that good? Okay. All right. So here's some things that I'm talking about. So events that support the work mean things that help people get their work done, right? That actually help them make progress on their work. So clear goals, for example, is one thing that really helps people focus and it motivates people, right? So it is a catalyst that can help people. And so often, like I'm working with a group of new managers, they're really good technically, but now they've become leaders and they have no clue how to lead people. They're just good at technical. They don't realize how important it is to set a goal with the people that are working for them. So that's where we kind of start with how do you set goals for your people? What are the expectations? What are you going to expect? Do your people know what the goals are and what is expected of them? Autonomy is another thing. So, a catalyst like autonomy is I allow you the freedom to be able to decide how you're going to approach the work, right? Now, when I'm working with my McDonald's clients, they can't always give people autonomy. A Big Mac is made the same way everywhere, all around the world, unless it's modified, right? And people can't just have the autonomy to go, you know what, today I'm not going to put the secret sauce on there, right? But we talk about how we can give them autonomy in other things, like maybe setting their own schedule or, having some say in other things. So, autonomy is another catalyst. Resources, for example, might be something like I'm working with a group of people and they're growing so fast, they need more people. So, they're doing like 3 jobs because some person left and now they have to take their job and they don't have the resources, they don't have the human resources to get the work done. And that blocks them from doing their own work and making progress. Time also, like what she finds is that if you give people a little bit of time pressure, it works. Too much time pressure, people are stressed. Not enough, like giving people no time pressure doesn't work either. That I always say to people, when do you want this? Because otherwise it's never going to get done. I need a little bit of that time pressure to get me motivated to get stuff done. So learning from problems is another catalyst. How do we help people learn from their problems rather than berate them because they got something wrong, right? Psychological safety is another catalyst, and open idea flow, allowing people to have their own ideas and share those ideas and take up those ideas. So did that answer that question, Michelle? And nourishers are much more about support of the person. So if I'm working with Megan, for example, am I showing Megan respect? Am I recognizing her when she does a good job? Am I encouraging her when things are going well and say, hey, you can do it? Or if she, or emotional support, like, oh, I'm so sorry that this happened. Or, yeah, I know you're going through a hard time right now with your dad, so might give Megan some emotional support and say, I hope he's doing okay, Megan. I hope he's doing better. And affiliation, for example, is now I'm going to have Megan get to know Elaine and Stephanie and Michelle because they're all going to work together. So maybe we can go bowling together. Maybe we can affiliate. Maybe we can have lunch together and stuff like that. So that's affiliation. So it's this idea that the catalysts are about, putting supports in place to help people really do their job and progress as quick as they can and do well at progress. Nourishers are about taking care of the person, right? The person. And then she talks also about inhibitors and toxins. So inhibitors undermine the work. So unclear or shifting goals. These are kind of the opposite. Micromanagement versus autonomy, right? Resource denial. Sorry, you can't have that, right? Constant time pressure, poor coordination, ignored mistakes. Idea shut down. Like, yeah, nice idea, but we're not doing that, kind of thing, right? So these block progress. Toxins undermine the person. So disrespect, discouragement, emotional neglect, blame, incivility, antagonism, right? When toxins are present, motivation collapses. So, really, the catalysts and the nourishers, the inhibitors and toxins, are kind of like the opposite of those two. So, and this is where I talk about setbacks are more powerful than progress. So, setbacks reduce happiness more than progress increases it. Negative events stick longer than positive ones. So leaders must remove obstacles first. So first, do no harm. So remember that. So remember, and this is the Baumeister's bad is stronger than good, Baumeister et al. Um, and like, for example, there was a study done with leaders, and they were given, like, I can't remember the number, but like 20 pieces of feedback. 18 were positive and 2 were negative. And then the next day, they asked the leaders, can you recall any of the feedback that you got the day before? And can you guess the ones that they recalled? The negative. That's what they remember. It stuck with them. So it hits us much more powerfully. And if you look at the work of Barbara Fredrickson, for example, she wrote her whole first book was about the positivity ratio and saying we need like 3, 4, 5 positive emotions to every one negative emotion to really be flourishing. Like we have to have many more positive experiences in the day than negative. You take a look at John Gottman's work on relationships. You need 20 positive or neutral interactions with your partner to every one is what he's suggesting to have a flourishing marriage. When you're having an argument, to have 5 positive versus 1 negative when you're having an argument with your loved one. So this kind of bears out in a lot of research, the impact of that negativity. And then negative emotions, the reason why Barbara Fredrickson's work got so much criticism too on this 3-to-1 on the ratio stuff, although she came back with a really good retort, which was really good. But, and I really love her work, is they're saying, like, if your dog dies, like, isn't that much more? Like, how can you just say a positive emotion? Do you know what I mean? Because, how can you say just a positive or negative emotion? Because if my dog dies, I'm going to be a lot more sad than if I just, stub my toe, you know, in the kitchen. Do you know what I mean? So how can she say it's 3-to-1? Like, when my husband died, I was like, that really affected me for years. So how can she say that? So it really sort of, you have to consider the intensity of it too. Now, Michelle is asking, does negativity impact women more? I don't have the answer to that question, Michelle. The only research that I do know, and and this came up in my interview with Sonia Lyubomirsky, is this idea of rumination. That when a negative thing happens, women ruminate much more about it than men do. And that rumination actually is one of the biggest contributors to female depression. So it might not be so much the negativity, it might be more how we process it. And if we're processing it with rumination, that could be affecting women more than men. But does anyone else have any research on that? Elaine, do you have any research on whether negative affects women more? Sorry, you're muted on.
So I just Googled National Institute of Health says gender differences in negative affect and well-being. And it says women's more intense positive emotions balance their higher negative affect. So yeah, I mean, that's such a great question. So
Yeah.
I guess I have to read more, but
Yeah.
another thing,
Okay, well, we'll read more and we'll see if there's anything on there. Could be a good question for
Louisa,
chat.
it does say
Yeah.
females or women are more susceptible to negative emotions, which may be an important mechanism underlying their increased liability to affective disturbances like rumination, which you brought
Yeah.
up. Yeah, that's
So
so
they're
interesting.
more susceptible to negative emotions. That's interesting. I wonder what they mean by that. They're more
Well, it's playing out in
susceptible.
social media right now, right? With all the body dysmorphia too, and it just seems exponentially worse for women
Mm.
on social media than, or even with AI than men.
Michelle, that could also, this idea of social comparison as well, right? Like the idea of body image and things like that. And I wrote about this in my book that there is research that shows that at a very, very young age, um, girls and young women are thinking about so many different things in their lives that need to be perfect or excellent. And this is where my Peace at Six exercise comes in, my tool, Peace at Six. Because what the study showed is that women are thinking they have to be excellent in like 14 different domains of their life. Like they have to be, good at their career, but also a good mother, but also, good at cooking and taking care of the household, also looking beautiful, and so there's like also good in their community. They have to be charitable and go to church, and they had like 14 different domains, whereas men were like three or four domains was good. So if we're always stressing about every 14 different domains, I thought, my gosh, no wonder we're so stressed out all the time. And then when I spoke to Alice Domar said, and take all those 14 domains and add thin to all of them because women are obsessed with being thin. For some reason, we have to feel like we're also thin, which is why the diet industry is like multi-billion-dollar industry. It's just, not, and Elaine's shaking her head because this is what she's trying to argue against this thought pattern, right? But so I think that plays into it too on social media. That, and I get, and everyone's trying to put that spin, like I look beautiful, let's add all the filters and let's have the nice house and everything else. Meanwhile, everything else behind is, you know,
There's the
like
great monologue in the Barbie movie where she talks about that, like just all these
right.
expectations. And I think what I took from that, and I'm hearing echoed in here, is that also it changes. So once you maybe meet what you think is some expectation, like you are maybe trying, like my sister, for example, has four kids and does the job, and my brother-in-law is wonderful, but it's still a bit more traditional. She does the cooking and right? But then you get, well, you're not spending enough time with your kids or you're not doing
Right.
this, like, right? So and maybe again, thinking about it in the domain piece kind of helps with that because it's like you're juggling so many more pieces. So hence you never feel like you have mastery of any of them, right? Versus
Exactly.
smaller. I do like though, Elaine, I don't know if that's what you said in there, but I think the flip of it is that we have that depth and capacity to better build those positives though too, right? The more
Mm,
awareness of all these layers, right, allows us to redirect it. But definitely for sure, I'm not surprised there's some support out there for genderized and of course, amplified with people who might be not cisgendered, right? And struggling with their own gender identity in different ways,
right.
right? So you've got this sort of these layers that get added on top
Right.
for different groups.
That's right.
I think it's keeping that in mind too, maybe when you're coaching someone, right? Like what's their lived perspective that they might be,
True.
struggling with.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
Elaine,
that,
go ahead.
Megan. So good. And just like the whole perception of it. And I shared a couple of the resources in the WhatsApp.
Oh, nice, nice. Okay, I will take those. Thank you, Elaine. Stephanie, did you unmute for a second there or no?
No, it's funny. I was going to say the thing about Barbie too, but Megan said it first. I'm like, I was
Okay,
totally thinking
okay.
about that the whole time. It was
It was
amazing.
great. Yeah, that was a great section. Okay. So my question, and this is where now we've only got 5 minutes left. So this is where, you know, I am hoping, and we can do this on our own, but where is progress already happening for you? So when you think about something that you want to make meaningful progress on, whether it's a goal, how are you already making meaningful progress? Like yesterday, what happened in the Monday accountability kickstart? Um, Kim Rigdon was talking about um, how she got asked to do a keynote address. And it was very exciting, and we were all like celebrating her, getting this keynote address. Very exciting. But I remembered that like a year ago, she said, I will know things are going really well when I get asked to do keynotes. And I was like, oh my gosh, here it is. And she had forgotten that. She had forgotten. She said, "Thank you for reminding me of that." And that's I think what we do is these things happen and we don't celebrate them. We just have been working so hard towards them. We don't take a moment. And I think we need to more often, and what Teresa Amabile suggests is at the end of every day to assess what were your small wins today? Or what are some of the inhibitors or toxins that you can remove from your day? Or what catalyst or nourisher could you provide for yourself? I went to the Thermea Spa um, on Sunday all day with Claire, my daughter Claire. Wow, like what a reset of my nervous system. I got to do that more often. Um, so these are some good questions to ask, even, so think about the goals that you're wanting to make progress on. What are you already doing? And, how can you every day think about the small wins, you know, and things that you can remove and things that you can add that will help you.
Louise, I'll just add a
Yeah.
perspective quickly about the small wins because I have a friend that was a, very active teacher in the Montessori world, very well known. And she unfortunately got ill with, I forget there's a proper name now, but it's basically chronic fatigue syndrome, right? And now for
Oh,
her, a small win might be brushing her teeth. Right.
right,
And so I think
right.
it's that context too of really giving ourselves permission to not hold it to some standard of what, this person's doing or this family member's doing. Because I think I do that, but I think we all kind of do that too, where we don't see it as a win because we're comparing it to some norm or some thing
Mm,
we think we need to be meeting. And so, she's had this for several years now, and we talk a lot about like that's been her biggest thing was to really truly embrace
yeah,
what success is, what that means, because it's not going to look like what she thought it was going to look like 10 years ago before she got sick. And so I think it really can be
so important.
inspiring sometimes to meet people who've, have something or some kind of tragedy that they can't, really get over, like even a physical disability or whatever, right?
Yeah,
And you realize that so I love this too, because I think it really helps with that reframing, right? Of
yeah.
what is a win, what is
I love
progress.
that.
And that's unique to you, right? It doesn't have to be what social media tells you it should be.
Exactly. I love that, Megan, because, and I don't know how this happened, but when I was young, everyone, my family had this idea of what success looked like, and it was not at all what I felt made me feel successful or good about my life. So I created my own success factors, and I had a list. And I thought, if I'm doing work that I really love, that's making an impact, that's helping people, that I'm making enough money that I can drive the car I want, live in the place I want, travel to the places that I want, that have happy relationships. I just had this list. And then I just always had that as my little lens. And I thought, yeah, you're right. I'm not making $1 billion or I'm not the CEO of something or whatever, but still feeling successful, And it's like run in your own lane, like keep your eye in your own lane. Yeah. I love that, Megan. Thank you. Thank you. So finally, just as a wrap up, instead of asking how do I motivate people, ask how do I facilitate daily progress? And that's really her performance architecture. So in a nutshell, performance doesn't rise from pressure, it rises from progress, not massive breakthroughs, but steady forward movement in meaningful work. And that is something we can design. So, yeah, Elaine, were you going to say something? So, oh,
I was talking to myself. I was like, love that.
okay, okay, good. So, as a follow-up, we're going to continue to see what are some of the things we can do to facilitate some of this, in terms of removing the inhibitors and toxins, in terms of offering catalysts and nourishers, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to, we'll do a little bit more on self-efficacy and Albert Bandura's work on how to build self-efficacy, for example, how it all works. Yeah, and we'll continue to build on this. So, but it's now 5:01, so I want us to wrap, but is there any final Any final words or comments, or what did you think of that? Was that helpful? Yeah, Elaine.
I thought it was super powerful presentation. I loved all the questions. Like I love the cohort like interaction. I got so much out of it. And then it was really reinforcing about how do I facilitate daily progress because I had taken a course in motivation or like you can't motivate anybody. You can only like inspire them. And then I think you're giving us so many tools here. So every blessing and thank you so much. And can I just say one thing, Michelle? I tagged you on a post that John Haidt wrote about digital stuff. So like I'm just looking out
Thank you. I follow him, but I'm not on LinkedIn every day. So was it on LinkedIn?
today. Yeah.
Oh, today. Okay, I
Did
have a
you
look today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
did you see his interview on Diary of a CEO?
No. Is
Not
it
on
good?
Diary
Oh,
CEO,
oh,
no.
you should watch it.
Ah, okay.
He has a brain scientist and him and they're talking about digital, how digital is really ruining people's lives. And it was really it's like a 2.5 hour interview.
Wow.
Just look it up, Diary of a CEO.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Louisa, this is so amazing. Thank you very much. Really.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
I loved it too. I thought it was incredible. It reminded me, I'm reading this book called Essentialism. I think his name is Greg McCown.
Oh yeah.
And it's the idea, the principle behind it is less but better. And so that's what there's just so much to have progress in and to progress. And sometimes if you just do less but try and do it better, that just is really resonating with
I
the
love
things I'm
that.
reading. I
I
will
love that.
say just for feedback on the
Yeah.
the slides, I love your
Yeah.
slides. They're very colorful, they're beautiful. For me and my
Yeah.
eyes, I found when it
Yeah.
went from a darker to a lighter and it was white, it was
Yeah.
really like it was hard for my eyes to adjust. That might just
Okay.
be me. I'd be
Okay.
interested in hearing what other people thought, but when you went from the darker background to the
Yep.
white background, I found
It
that
was
really
like,
jarring on
whoa.
my eyes. I don't know.
Okay.
Did you think so too, Megan?
Megan, you found the same thing?
No, I didn't specifically notice it, but I work a lot with in developmental disabilities. We talk so much about accessibility. And so when you said that, I'm like, actually, yeah, it's something I've not thought about, but the like the changing of the
Yeah,
contrast, I could see that like even with someone with a different neurodevelopmental sort of perspective, that also being a little bit jarring too. So yeah, I didn't notice it,
yeah,
but I
Thank
think
you.
it's an interesting observation, right? I think it's always important to hear those things because
Yeah.
everyone sees the world in a different way, right?
Good to
yeah.
know.
It's
So
just an FYI, and
Yeah.
I just noticed it today, which I don't normally do. So the fact that I did, I just wanted to say something because I
There
just
are
thought that would be important for you to know.
there are some big contrasts. So like one or the other would be fine, Stephanie. Is
I
that
think
correct? Just
so. I
not
think you
so
just kind
much.
of keep it the same. That's just my personal one N of one opinion.
Yeah.
Um, I don't ever notice it when I have present like when I go to presentations, but today it was really jarring and it kind of almost hurt my eyes and gave me like a little bit of a headache.
Oh
And
my
it was
gosh.
I don't
Okay.
get headaches, but it's not, it's not your
Okay.
fault. I'm just saying that it was weird to have the to have
Yeah.
that experience because I've never had that before. So,
Okay.
yeah.
mm.
Okay. I will keep that in mind.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Loved
Okay.
loved it so
And
much. It was
thank you.
just
Very
Thank
applicable.
you.
incredible.
Thank you.
Good.
Incredible.
And you're seeing the applicability with your work, Michelle? Yeah,
I can
as
see
well.
how
Yeah.
I can go through my trainings and apply some of this knowledge to
Okay.
improve it. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
me too.
Now I'm posting the slides and the video in the classroom. Okay, so I'm meeting with Stephanie right now, actually, but then and then I'm going to yoga, so I'll do it tonight, but I'll make sure that you've got the video and the slides and
Beautiful.
some of the
Thank
other
you.
things that I said I would put in there. Okay, thanks
Great
Great.
seeing
everybody.
everybody.
Bye
We'll see
now.
you
Bye.
next
Bye.
time.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Lots
Have a
of
good
love.
week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hi, guys.
Bye.